Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're tackling a subject that is, frankly, pretty intimidating. We're going to dive deep into exactly why the UPSC Civil Services Examination is notoriously tough. But more importantly, we'll look at how seemingly ordinary students actually manage to conquer it year after year. To really put this into perspective, you have to understand that this is the exam that gates the absolute top administrative and diplomatic positions in India. We're talking about the test that determines who becomes the IAS and IPS officers tasked with governing a nation of literally 1.4 billion people. So if you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by the sheer scale of this exam, well, you are definitely in the right place. Okay, let's kick things off with a number that might just blow your mind. 44.7%. That was the 10th grade score of Avanish Sharan, a student who was placed in the 3rd division of his high school class. But get this exact same guy eventually cracked the UPSC exam and became a highly respected IAS officer. And that brings us to a massive question, one that literally paralyzes so many aspirants before they even crack open a single book. Do you have to be a university gold medalist or just an absolute born genius to survive this test? Think about it. If an average student can make it through one of the most competitive gauntlets on the planet, what exactly is the secret sauce to their success? To find that answer, we're going to cover 5 key areas. 1. The anatomy of the exam. 2. Why is UPSC so tough? 3. Why good candidates fail. 4. Busting the genius myth. And 5. How average students win. All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the anatomy of the exam. Looking at this timeline, you quickly realize this whole process requires sheer physical and mental endurance. It is absolutely not a quick sprint. It's a grueling marathon. You kick off on day 1 with the objective prelims, which tests your general studies and basic aptitude through the CSAT paper. Now, if you manage to survive that initial elimination round, you move on to the mains. And wow, this is a punishing week. You're writing 9 intensive descriptive papers, basically back to back. Finally, if you clear the mains, you're up against the daunting personality test, which is effectively a super high-stakes interview. So yeah, it's a marathon that tests not just what you know, but your absolute stamina. Which leads us perfectly into Section 2. Why is UPSC so tough? Here's the deal. You're battling a massive, dynamically changing syllabus, and there are no officially prescribed textbooks to just, memorize and regurgitate. To really grasp why UPSC is so notoriously tough, think about this. You are constantly having to connect static, ancient history to today's rapidly shifting geopolitical newspaper headlines. They aren't just asking you what happened in 1947, they want to know how the socioeconomic policies of 1947 directly influence a Supreme Court ruling from yesterday. Combine all of that dynamic thinking with extreme competition for a very, very limited number of spots, and it's super easy to see where the pressure is just immense. And for a lot of academic toppers, the mains present a pretty terrifying reality. In university, a lot of us get used to writing pages and pages to sort of stretch out our knowledge and scoop up high marks. But here, the word limit is strictly fixed. You literally cannot just memorize guidebooks and fill pages with fluff to win. You've got to be deeply analytical, painfully concise, and perfectly structured. You are condensing incredibly complex governance issues into just 150 to 250 words. It's wild. So let's look at Section 3. Why good candidates fail. It turns out, really brilliant candidates frequently fall into some very predictable traps. Take overconfidence, for example. Top-tier engineering or science students will often just totally ignore that initial aptitude paper, assuming their background is enough, only to fail the prelims entirely. Or look at the resource hoarding trap. Candidates buy dozens of thick books from every single author out there, which just leads to massive confusion and a total lack of crucial revision. Others skip answer writing practice, resulting in horrible time management during the mains. It just goes to show that raw intelligence, without a really tight strategy, leads directly to disaster. And we can't forget the psychological weight of the UPSC. It can utterly crush you. Total panic and a lack of resilience right there in the exam hall will cause you to completely forget everything you've spent the last 11 months studying. Exam fear is a very genuine obstacle. It fogs the mind of even the most knowledgeable aspirants, turning perfectly prepared students into deer caught in the headlights. Now let's shift gears to Section 4, busting the genius myth. Listen, the reality is that overstudying actually leads to severe fatigue, anxiety, and ultimate burnout. There's this crazy pervasive myth out there that you need to be a machine, right? Studying 15 to 18 hours every single day, completely sacrificing your sleep and your sanity. But actually, 6 to 10 hours of highly focused, quality daily study is what builds the sustainable, long-term consistency you truly need to cross that finish line without breaking down. Another massive misconception is that you need some flawless 90% academic record from an elite university. But as we've seen, the UPSC doesn't care about your past photographic memory from high school. It evaluates your current conceptual clarity, your analytical thinking, and your dedication on a completely level playing field. And this is exactly why university gold medalists frequently fail, while candidates with 45% records can, and absolutely do, clear the exam. Because the truth is really simple. Grades do not define intelligence. Your past report cards have absolutely no bearing on your ability to understand complex governance issues, adapt to dynamic challenges, and serve the nation today. This exam, it is the ultimate equalizer. Bringing us to our final part, Section 5, How Average Students Win. Let's bring it back to that incredible story of Awanish Sharan we talked about earlier. Remember, he scored just 44.7% in 10th grade. He then took state-level public service exams and failed them 10 separate times. 10 times. Yet, he stuck with it, learned from those rejections, and ultimately cracked the UPSC with an all-India rank of 77. His path vividly proves that resilience, the ability to bounce back from repeated failure and refine your strategy, is the true defining trait of a successful IAS officer. So how do they do it? Well, success comes from strictly limiting your book list, starting with your core, school-level NCERT textbooks to build a rock-solid foundation. It comes from a ruthless, realistic consistency of 6 to 8 hours a day. It comes from practicing your writing speed to conquer those strict mains word limits we mentioned. And, super importantly, it comes from maintaining a balanced life rather than locking yourself in a room until your mental health shatters. Average students win by being disciplined, not by being extreme. When it really comes down to mastering the syllabus, there is a distinct winning formula. Smart candidates know they've got to actively integrate today's dynamic editorials from prominent papers like The Hindu or the Indian Express directly into their static syllabus notes. You have to weave the foundational past and the shifting present together constantly to formulate well-rounded answers. And this right here is the core philosophy of clearing the UPSC. The 60% student with unwavering, daily, focused discipline is going to outpace the erratic 95% score every single time. Intelligence is merely a tool, but consistency, that is the engine that actually drives you across the finish line. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. Success in the UPSC isn't something you inherit through a high IQ, and it's certainly not barred from you because of a low high school grade. It is earned through strategy, resilience, and the daily grind. So, tell me, will you rely on past academic glory, or will you build the discipline to conquer the beast tomorrow?